It was a cold winter morning, the kind where the air feels sharp and unforgiving. The city was already awake, people rushing through their routines, focused on their own lives, their own worries. Near a small bakery, a young boy stood quietly. His jacket was thin, his shoes worn, and his hands were hidden inside his sleeves to fight the cold. He wasn't asking for anything. He wasn't crying or calling out. He was simply standing there, watching the world move past him. People noticed him, but only for a second. Some looked away quickly, others pretended not to see him at all. A few slowed down, hesitated, then continued walking. To them, he was just another part of the street, another problem they didn't want to face. The boy felt every passing moment grow heavier. Hunger twisted in his stomach, but worse than hunger was the feeling of being invisible. A man walked past him, his shoulders slightly hunched, his face tired from a long day that had barely begun. He had his own worries, his own responsibilities waiting for him. He took a few steps forward, blending into the crowd, and for a moment it seemed like he would disappear just like everyone else. But something inside him resisted. He stopped. The noise of the city felt distant as he turned around and looked back at the boy. Their eyes met. The boy quickly looked down, already expecting disappointment. The man slowly stepped closer and knelt in front of him, lowering himself to the boy's level. His voice was calm and gentle when he spoke. He asked if the boy was hungry. The boy didn't say much. He simply nodded, his throat too tight for words. The man checked his wallet. There wasn't much inside. He sighed quietly, knowing he couldn't solve everything. Across the street, the warm lights of the bakery glowed against the cold morning. He stood up and told the boy to wait. The boy didn't respond, didn't smile, didn't move. He had learned not to expect promises to be kept. Minutes passed slowly. The boy watched the street, unsure if the man would return. Then he saw him coming back, holding a small bag with warm bread and a cup of milk. Steam rose into the air as the man placed the food gently into the boy's hands. The boy hesitated, as if he needed permission to believe this was real, and then he began to eat, slowly and carefully, savoring every bite. The man sat beside him on the cold pavement. He didn't rush. He didn't check his phone or look at the time. He simply sat there, sharing the silence, sharing the moment. It wasn't about charity. It was about presence. When the boy finished eating, the man softly asked about his family. The boy's eyes dropped to the ground as he spoke about his sick mother and the father who was no longer around. His words were quiet, but the weight behind them was heavy. The man listened without interrupting. He reached into his pocket and gave the boy a little money, but more importantly, he gave him his attention. He wrote his phone number on a small piece of paper and placed it in the boy's hand. He told him to call if he ever needed help. Before leaving, the man looked at him and said something simple but powerful, that he mattered, that his life was important. As the man walked away, the boy held onto that piece of paper like it was something fragile and precious. For the first time in a long while, the cold didn't feel as harsh. Years passed quietly. The city changed. The bakery closed. Streets were repaired. Life moved on. One afternoon, a young man walked down that same road with confident steps and books in his hand. He slowed down near the place where the bakery once stood, memories flooding back. Across the street, he noticed a familiar figure helping another child. The posture, the kindness, the way he spoke, it all felt deeply familiar. The young man crossed the road and stopped in front of him. He spoke softly, asking if the man remembered a cold morning and a hungry boy. The older man looked confused at first, then slowly, recognition filled his eyes. The young man smiled and told him that he was that boy. He explained that the small act of kindness from years ago had given him hope when he had none, strength when he felt invisible. The man stood silently, his eyes filling with tears. He hadn't remembered the moment clearly, but the impact had lived on far beyond that day. As they stood there, the young man turned to help the child beside them, continuing the same kindness he once received. And in that quiet exchange, it became clear that kindness never truly ends. It simply moves forward, carried from one heart to another. The young man didn't say much more. He didn't need to. The truth had already settled between them, quiet and heavy in the air. The older man looked at him again, really looked this time, and smiled, the kind of smile that comes when someone realizes their smallest choice mattered more than they ever knew. They stood there for a few seconds, neither in a hurry. Cars passed. People walked by. Life kept moving, just like it always had. But for them, time slowed. The young man thanked him once, softly, without drama, and before leaving he reached into his pocket and handed the older man some money. Not as repayment. As continuation. Use it for someone else, he said. The older man nodded. He didn't argue. He understood. As the young man walked away, he felt something light in his chest. That cold morning from years ago no longer felt painful. It felt complete. What once began as hunger and silence had turned into strength and direction. That single moment of being seen had shaped the way he lived his life, the way he treated people, the way he noticed those standing quietly on the edges of the world. That evening, the young man went home and sat beside his mother, now resting peacefully. He thought about how close his life had come to breaking, and how easily it had been held together by one stranger's kindness. He realized something simple and unsettling at the same time: the world doesn't change through grand gestures. It changes when someone decides not to look away. Somewhere else in the city, the older man bought food for another child. And that child, too, felt warmth where there had only been cold. No one filmed it. No one applauded. But something shifted, again. And that's how kindness really works. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wait to be perfect. It just shows up, quietly, at the exact moment someone needs it most. One choice. One pause. One human noticing another. Tomorrow morning, the city will wake up the same way. People will rush. Worries will follow them out the door. And somewhere, someone will be standing silently, hoping to be seen. The question isn't whether kindness can change a life. The question is whether we choose to stop long enough to offer it.